So, given what has conspired within the past few years, it has been an interesting start to the 2020s as a decade, with 2020 being, well, let's be real, a shit show for the movie industry in more ways than one. Sure, we got stuff like Soul and Wolfwalkers that made it a little bit better, but between so much that was affected by the pandemic, it was hard to find some truly remarkable films of that year. 2021 was a vast improvement. Even with every disappointing and bad film that appears, there were a decent amount that made it still a huge improvement compared to the last year. And then we get to this year. 2022 was some year for film, and I mean that in the best way possible. This was a year filled with a variety of different films that have spoken to not only me, but to many others as well. This is the year filled with so many films that managed to be ambitious, thought-provoking, and just an all-around blast to witness from beginning to end. Sure, I could go on about how this year sucked by highlighting the most cringe-inducing and insufferable films of 2022. I mean, if I actually wasted my time watching some of that crap. Though I say it's more worth it to celebrate the films I saw this year that truly spoke to me, and ones that I had an absolute amazing time experiencing from beginning to end. This is my own personal ranking of the year. Though before I get started, I wanted to at least get a few honorable mentions out of the way. Those being The Fabelmans, The Banshees of Inisherin, My Father's Dragon, Intergalactic, and Pearl. Now with that out of the way, let's get started on my personal favorite movies of 2022. Every once in a while, a new one-off film that keeps it rather simple ends up being one of the best blockbusters of that year. Jordan Peele's Nope is definitely that movie for this year for me. This guy has gotten a steady track record of really bringing some unique films in the horror genre. Get Out still might be his best film so far, but I admire a lot of the scale and ambition Nope has, and does it all in relatively simple means. On the surface, this does seem like a typical alien invasion movie, but what makes it better is that through its simplicity, it ends up becoming a lot more in-depth. This is a film all about spectacle that also critiques how we view it in regards to ethical treatments of people, animals, and other things completely out of our control. It's all through a film that strives to be the kind of blockbuster Spielberg would make, being a film ultimately about characters taking down a creature in the vein of Jaws. Which, I guess I should say, spoiler alert in case you still haven't seen it, but the one pure thing I love about this movie is what actually the aliens in this movie are. It's not a race of aliens wanting to take over the world, using a flying saucer to get here. Instead, the flying saucer is the creature. Just this big, gigantic monster trying to adapt and survive. That is so stupidly simple that it ends up being brilliant. It's such a great turnaround on playing with your expectations while still serving its ultimate function as a fun alien invasion blockbuster. In fact, despite being the lowest on this list, I can say with confidence that this film had the best marketing for any movie of this year. Just the way the trailers constantly played up that it was going to be a certain kind of alien film was a great misdirect, especially with what this shot ended up being in the film compared to the trailers. You know what I'm talking about. Bottom line, Nope was quite great and managed to make this list for how it stood out as a big summer blockbuster. Definitely was a major highlight in a summer during a full year of great movies. Speaking of blockbusters, let's take a moment to talk about one of the highest grossing films of the entire year that is a legacy sequel to something that came out years ago. Now I know what some of you are probably thinking. Wait, Top Gun Maverick is an amazing action movie that earned all the money it got at the box office, and it's only number 21? Well, yes. But you'd be right by saying that this is one of the best action movies and sequels to come out this year. Don't take this placement as an insult to the film, but more so as a testament to how good this year was. For a lot of these movies on this list, I don't want to dwell too much on them since I've already reviewed them, including this one, so you can watch my review if you wish. But I did want to highlight a little bit more about what made this film so special to me. This is a grand sequel that improves what was originally a fun 80s romp into something much more personal, and not to mention badass in a lot of ways. This film surprisingly can have some great character dynamic with how they handled the characters of Tom Cruise, Miles Teller, Jennifer Connelly, and most importantly Val Kilmer in one of his best appearances in recent memory. Sure, I still take issue with the conflict not amounting to as much as I would like, but I can't deny some of the jaw-droppingly good action sequences that appear in this film. One I want to emphasize that I didn't talk about as much in my review is that there's one scene that guaranteed this movie to be on the list. One of my absolute favorite scenes of the entire year goes to the first flight training sequence. It is incredible with how they managed to pull off so much craftsmanship with these planes, giving you a great sense of immersion, and it's awe-inspiring. Also helps that this scene is heightened even further thanks to the best music to appear in this film. No, not from Hans Zimmer, not from Lady Gaga, not even from Kenny Loggins, but instead the one and only The Who. Seriously, a film that uses a song like Won't Get Fooled Again to a scene this fucking awesome absolutely deserves a shout out in my book. An excellent way to kick off an end of the year celebration. Now for the next movie, let's talk about another sequel that is pretty prominent and having one of my favorite leads in any movie this year. And he just so happens to be The Color Blue. So let's go forth and introduce...
You're unskilled, untrained, and unworthy.
You forgot one. Unstoppable.
Yes, possibly one of the biggest outliers on my list compared to most other ones. I mean, you're probably questioning why this over Top Gun 2. Well, let me explain. Because Sonic 2 makes this list for being that dream movie I have always wanted as a kid. Maybe you yourself have a movie that recently you saw and were like, man, if I was a kid, this would be my favorite movie. Well, Sonic 2 is exactly that for me. As someone who has been a long-time fan of this series, to see a movie that is actually fairly competent and also stays true to the Sonic franchise is something to behold. I mean, this is Sonic we're talking about. A series that has so many ups and downs in its quality, having its own movie, which technically speaking, video game movies don't have a good track record either. This film, I think, breaks both of those curses, as this year between this, Sonic Prime, and especially Frontiers, has been quite a great year for the Blue Blur. And this is a video game movie I can say is 100% good for a change. It had so many good callbacks to the games, some really fun action and effects, and I can't express how much I love the portrayals of some of my favorite video game characters on the silver screen. Ben Schwartz is a great Sonic, and Colleen O'Shaughnessy and Idris Elba are a phenomenal pair to team up with him as Tails and Knuckles. Sure, maybe that wedding sequence went on a bit too long, but that doesn't matter. This is what I think was the best we could have gotten for something like Sonic 2, and it's honestly a miracle considering we're talking about this of all things. Let's hope Mario gets just as lucky with his newest film debut next year, but for now, I'm just happy that Sonic 2 was every bit of a Sonic experience I want from this film. And I will definitely be there for Sonic 3 when that comes out. I mean, after all, it's not like there's another third installment of a movie series set to come out that same day that also features a blue protagonist. Even if there was, it probably isn't good enough for me to watch over my favorite video game series of all time. So, Sonic vs. Shadow it is. Sorry, James Cameron.
What do you want?
We are Wendell and Wild, your personal demons.
The man behind Coraline and The Nightmare Before Christmas has returned once again. No, not Tim Burton, but instead Henry Selick. This time teaming up with Key and Peele in one of the most interesting stop-motion projects to appear all year. Two demons trying to help a teenage girl seems like a prime film for Halloween season, and Wendell and Wild certainly delivered. Add in a PG-13 rating, a great cast, and a surprisingly enlightening commentary on private prisons, you got an animated film not to miss out on for Netflix. I'm glad Henry Selick finally got to officially make this project see the light of day, and I would discuss more on this, but I think I have better plans for Wendell and Wild later down the road. So, if you didn't check it out this Halloween season, it's certainly worth hiring these demons to witness some spooks from the underworld for the next season of Halloween.
If you're here, then you already know who she is, and that is one of the most important musical figures of our time.
Tar is certainly a fascinating film in so many different aspects. This is a movie that's mostly fixated on one character, famous composer and conductor Lydia Tarr. With such a high status, a movie about the downfall of one of the world's most renowned artists seems like a no-brainer for a good Oscar flick. If you add in a very slow burn, yet one of the most well-directed films I've seen all year, championed by one of the best performances of the year, then you got something truly worthwhile. It's no secret that Cate Blanchett gives it her all in practically every single movie she has been in, and this is not only no exception, but it's one powerhouse of a performance as well. Blanchett is incredible in every single scene, and what makes her interesting is that she's a very flawed character, to a point where her flaws can be a deterrent to her. Yet, you do get a sense of understanding of why she is the way she is. And with such a huge range of emotions, the character of Lydia Tarr is certainly quite intriguing. It's also a top-notch production. Cinematography, editing, and music all playing a huge role in making this downfall from grace one that's engaging from beginning to end with its 2.5 hour long runtime. It even has a lot of debate to be had in so many factions that I certainly recommend watching this to see what you can get out of this character study of one of Cate Blanchett's best performances. If anything else, it's the only Oscar movie you'll see this year that incorporates Monster Hunter into its plot. So regardless, it's worth your time. No, I'm actually not kidding about how Monster Hunter is involved with this movie. Seriously, I won't say how, you have to see the movie for yourself. Anyway, good movie. Let's move on.
3,000 years will give you such a crick in the neck.
Easily one of the most overlooked and underrated films of the entire year, 3,000 Years of Longing is a worthwhile story that can only come from someone as creative as George Miller. This is far from one of the biggest hits of the year, but it's a shame that it wasn't, because visually and narratively, this is one ambitious piece of work, highlighting the importance of storytelling through what's essentially an anthology film, with love being the core factor tying them all together. It's such a unique film that I can't think of anything else this year, hell, maybe even the past couple of years, that's anything like it. When you get a director with such a varied filmography as the guy who made Mad Max Fury Road, Happy Feet, and Babe 2 Pig in the City, then you're almost always bound to witness something new. Add in some great performances from Tilda Swinton and Knuckles the Echidna, and you got one of the most underrated films of this year. Don't wait 3,000 years to sit out on this one and check it out for yourself.
I've been searching all my life for...
Excuse me? Captain, no, you haven't.
Of all the animated movies to have come out this year, the The Sea Beast is one that I wish got a theatrical release. Thankfully, this movie did get some recognition for being a Netflix film, as it should. This is the kind of animated movie that goes all out and grandiose in being this massive adventure filled with so much action and character to it. Visually stunning with some of the best character designs I've seen all year in a CGI animated film. The Sea Beast is more than just some throwaway animated film dumped to Netflix, if you ask me. That is especially thanks to a lot of strong themes that really hold up, and it's all summed up to possibly one of my favorite lines of any movie this year.
But you can be a hero and still be wrong.
Fantastic stuff right there. If you still haven't seen this, give it a watch. It's worth setting sail on the seven seas to witness a sea beast as epic as this one right here. I feel like a lot of people honestly forgot that Roger Eggers came out with his big Viking epic this year with the Northmen. It's not quite as good as his previous work. I mean, it's hard to top something as excellent as The Lighthouse. But as far as blockbusters go, this is certainly one of the more ambitious and risk-taking ones. A bloodbath retelling of Hamlet with Vikings crafted with some excellent action sequences that feel right out of something like The Revenant. The Northman really has some guts and balls to it. Very well shot, great sound design, and some damn good performances all around. Almost wish I saw this at AMC to see that contrast of Nicole Kidman watching this movie and what she ends up essentially being in this film. Trust me, you don't want to know. See the movie for yourself for that. And I say it's definitely worth your time to witness what someone as creative and unique as Eggers can bring with a film of this scale. Only gripe I have, still wish there was more Willem Dafoe, but great movie regardless. I hadn't checked out as many documentaries this year, unfortunately, as I would have liked. However, there was one that did make the cut, and it's the one that focuses on the legendary David Bowie. Moon Age Daydream is another film that manages to be a trippy, visceral experience that has to be seen to be believed. This documentary showcases the career and life of Bowie in a very unique way, not really relying on anything current, and instead using a lot of different footage from concert, movies, and other moments in Bowie's incredible life. It's the definition of show don't tell, and we get a great sense of how distinct of an individual Bowie was, being way ahead of his time as an artist, and even icon for music, film, and the LGBT community, among other things. Come for the visual experience, stay for the fantastic music done by the legendary Goblin King himself, which is all throughout the movie as expected. I can't really say much else other than check this film out. What better way to celebrate the life of David Bowie than to freak out in a Moon Age Daydream? If I'm going to talk about the sequel to Rian Johnson's best contribution to cinema with Knives Out, I feel the need to express when I knew we were in for a good time with Glass Onion. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen this movie yet, but it's honestly amazing that Benoit Blanc's triumphant return to cinema is seeing him play Among Us. And to top it all off, he's having a Zoom call with the late Angela Lansbury.
Mark, I saw you go in the engine room. You're the imposter. We all know it.
Truly, cinema has returned. And as for the rest of Glass Onion, this is pretty damn great. It has everything you like about the first Knives Out, with it being an engaging mystery with an incredible diverse cast of characters, yet it still manages to be a distinct and refreshing original movie with how it has so many twists and turns. It's to a point where I can argue that you don't necessarily have to see the first Knives Out to get or enjoy this film. I mean, seriously watch both if you haven't, because they're both awesome. Rian Johnson seems like he wants to make more movies with Daniel Craig as Blanc, and I'm all for it. Not much else to say, except this Glass Onion is one that's definitely worth peeling every piece to find the layers within its great mystery.
Be mindful, but do not eat. Our menu is too precious for that.
Stylish, smart, and fulfills a good appetite. The Menu was a great experience in a sea of a ton of great movies. A film all about dissecting the idea of criticism and how it can be damaging to an artist's well-being is something I can literally eat up. Have that through a well-crafted piece of directorial work and very strong performances from actors like Ralph Fiennes and Anya Taylor-Joy, and you're in for a treat. I adore what The Menu said, and the fact that it was done through one of the funniest dark comedies I've seen this year makes it a definite must-watch. I've heard through the grapevine that it's now on HBO Max, so watch it there when you get a chance. Even if it might not make you think of s'mores the same way again after watching it, you'll know it when you see it. Either way, this is a menu that's definitely worth taking a gander at.
I need to know that I have done one thing right with my life.
If there's any studio that had really made an impact to making 2022 such an incredible year for film, it is by far A24. They've made quite a name for themselves within the past couple of years or so, bringing out some of the most emotional, bold, and unique films to have come out in recent memory. This studio has ambition like no other, and while I haven't seen everything they've done this year, I won't oppose to checking out anything else the studio has to offer if it can maintain that consistent level of quality. And that is especially when they team up with a director as bold as Darren Aronofsky and an actor as talented as Brendan Fraser. The Whale might not be the best thing to come out of A24 or Aronofsky in my opinion, but this is another film that does play to a lot of their strengths. It's a very heartfelt film that captures humanity in a very touching way, and it is a dark film about obsessive, flawed individuals with some outstanding performances. Comes to be expected, but even with the mixed reception, I am digging the fact that it's been unanimous that Brendan Fraser seems like the front runner to win Best Actor. For good reason. It's still an excellent performance that, even with its controversy surrounding it, you can't help but admire what Fraser was able to do to give this character life. Maybe not for everyone, like most of Aronofsky's work, but a powerful movie in a lot of ways for those who can see the truly great things people are capable of. So, I'll be the first to admit, I haven't seen a lot of Indian movies. This isn't to say that they're bad. Some of them look kind of fun, though some of them seem to have this sort of attempt at being big and grand, but might come across as too ridiculous or overcrowded. Not to say they're bad. I'm aware of their appeal. I probably need to be in the right mindset to watch them. So I kinda did after hearing so many good things about a little movie called RRR. Don't really know that much about it, but hey, this could be a fun time. Well, that was an absolute blast of a movie. As someone who hasn't watched a lot of Indian films, I can already tell this is somewhat of a game changer for Indian cinema. RRR, otherwise known as Rise, Roar, Revolt, with its 3-hour runtime and craziness throughout, might sound like a movie that could easily fall apart. However, the crew behind this film gave us something truly wild and bigger than anything else I can think of when it comes to Indian cinema. Just how violent and brutal the opening is alone. I was hooked from the start, and kind of showed to me that this might be even more ambitious for the kind of film it is. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I don't recall hearing that Indian films get incredibly violent. At least, not to the degree that this film does. But hey, I'm all for it because the way the action is shot, edited, and the effects that go into this 3-hour epic shows that there was definitely money well spent here. But even taking that out of it, this is just a great bromance movie based around best friends and revolutionaries, Raja and Bahim. You can totally get into their stories and characters due to how many heroic things you see them do and the great bond they have. So honestly, I don't find this movie hard to like from a story perspective. This is a movie that has a little bit of everything. Great action, amazing stunts, dancing, singing, ferocious tigers, and so much more that has to be seen to be believed. It's on Netflix, so even if you think this movie might not be your thing, give it a chance. And you may even want to rise, roar, and revolt alongside this kick-ass experience of a movie. A film that is literally years in the making. Phil Tippet's Mad God is by far one of the most ambitious projects to have ever come out this year. A stop-motion animated violent bloodbath of a film with no dialogue that took 30 years to make. What do you say to that, James Cameron? Where the hell is Phil Tippet's glowing praise for spending years working on this film? He brought something that was actually really cool. The stop-motion animation here is something to behold, and that's not even taking into account the creative designs that are unlike anything else. You get hints of other movies here, but it's all told through the visuals that make it so enticing and really has some great deep meaning when you look further into it. It all leads to an ending that is probably the most 2001 style trip out sequence you would see all year alongside the entirety of Moon Age Daydream. That's a visceral experience to send off this brilliant project. Might not be the most accessible movie for the average moviegoer, but for those who want to take the risk, the film is at least easy to access on Shudder and is worth your time. Take a gander into the depths of hell to witness this dark, twisted original tale this Mad God has to offer.
Well, you might forget to honor yourself. Luckily, I don't have that problem.
So, as good of a year it has been for film, I don't think I'm the only one who felt it wasn't that good of a year for Disney. Between some poor business decisions done by a now former CEO, and also some lackluster projects to have come out ranging from mostly okay, I guess, to, well,
Chris Pine!
other shit. However, even despite that, there was one movie that actually was really worthwhile that the studio pumped out. Not Doctor Strange 2, not Strange World. In fact, I wouldn't consider this pick to be strange in the slightest, as Disney's best movie of 2022 goes to... well, of course, Turning Red. Could you imagine saying this movie, the one that's probably the best thing to come out from Disney this year, is crap? That would be stupid, because honestly, Turning Red is such an energetic and fun new take on a Pixar movie that still managed to have a lot of the same sort of Pixar heart to it. It's a film all about being your own person while mixing in that balance of having that family love mixed in with the love for yourself. As cliche as the whole generational trauma thing has been starting to play out from Disney in recent memory, Turning Red had a great spin on it. A great cast of characters, a bombastic animation style, and not to mention an awesome soundtrack. Seriously, I don't think I really highlighted how great Ludwig Göransson's score is in this during my original review. One of my favorite score in the entire year, and fits the movie perfectly. The real downside is that this really should have been a theatrical release as initially promised, but even despite that, I can't recommend this movie enough. If this is another indication to what Pixar can do this decade, then I'll be all for it. A movie with this much personality, character, and just all-around originality to it. It's the exact kind of movie I look forward from Disney, and especially Pixar. Definitely earns its spot on the list, as you won't find a better Pixar movie to have come out in a year as good as 2022 is for film. Sorry, Lightyear.
Clearly, I will go say.
My name is Marcel, and I'm partially a shell, as you can see on my body, but I also have shoes and a face, so I like that about myself, and I like myself, and I have a lot of other good qualities as well.
Another reason to truly highlight A24 as one of the best studios in recent memory, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On was my most anticipated movie of the summer season. During one filled with bombastic blockbusters, it was refreshing to see a film be as small and quiet as someone like Marcel the Shell himself. A touching and heartfelt piece of work that discusses themes of loss and making a difference to the world that is exactly something you would want for A24. What makes it even more special is how this is all done in what essentially is a kid's movie, and does it in a way I think they can still comprehend and be enlightened by. The stop motion animation here is so exquisite with how they managed to blend so perfectly with the live action counterparts. Such a uniquely beautiful film from an animation perspective, and it makes me excited for the prospect of more animated films from the studio. Whether their future animated films end up being for kids or not, I'm in either way. It comes highly recommended from me, based on the animation and how lovable Marcel the Shell is as a character alone. It might be one of the smaller movies to have come out this year, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't notice the truly big heart this little character has. Speaking of A24, now that we're getting even closer to the end of my list, here's possibly the most controversial choice I could have ever considered putting this high on my 2022 list.
Love is what we came here for. No one could offer you more. Do you know what I mean?
I'm probably the main person I know of that put this movie as high on their list as they did. But honestly, Alex Garland's Men is certainly a film to remember. Yes, this isn't a movie for everyone, and it still has easily the most traumatizing things I've seen all year in its final third act. Yet, at the same time, I could not stop thinking about this after first watching this film. In a good way. I found this to be a truly effective horror film, with how it tackles misogyny, grief, and even love in such a profound way when you really think about it. The use of Leslie Duncan's love song might just be my favorite use of any licensed song in a movie this year, just for how it ties into those core themes of the film in a thought-provoking way. Maybe not the most recommendable movie of 2022, but for those who are willing to, you might find A24's horror film, Men, to be just as deep as I thought it was, if you want to look into it with the right mindset. I just want to add one last thing before I move on that I stated in my original review of this film, but have to clearly state it again because I seriously have to warn you guys. Don't watch this movie the same day as the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie on Disney+.
My name is Dale. I don't eat whale. Why would you say that I eat whale?
Seriously, seeing the ending to Men was alarming enough. You don't need to witness a movie that features Ugly Sonic as a prominent character. Trust me. No one can handle that much insanity. I learned that the hard way. So I initially wasn't going to make this a top 22 list to make things simple this year, but with so many great films, I didn't want to leave out certain ones, and a year as good as 2022 deserves to have a list of this scale. In fact, it wasn't until seeing this film finally that I decided to expand the list because of how excellent it is. Anyway, the film is another sequel that's vastly improved from the first film.
Yes.
The obvious choice that came out this past December.
He's right.
A film you all know. It was a decade in the making.
That's me.
Give it up for the best sequel to come out in 2022. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
What?
Yeah, surely I'm not missing anything else this year had to offer. Anyways.
Hey, you want to see something cool?
Yeah, this kind of had no right to be as good as it honestly was. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, even in the year with Top Gun Maverick and Sonic 2, managed to be the biggest improvement of a sequel this year. This really has been a comeback year for DreamWorks Animation, with them doing some really cool stuff earlier this year with the bad guys. However, I thought that was going to be the best thing they could bring. Never did I expect them to make a film that's even leagues better than that, and of all movies, it's a Shrek spin-off. Puss in Boots 2 still has a lot of the humor that Shrek is known for, but this time it's done in an incredibly well-paced chase film between multiple characters with possibly the most unique look for a Shrek film in quite some time. This animation strives to be more stylistic with some outstanding action sequences that might as well be some of the most gorgeous I've seen all year. It still strives to be an interesting take on fairy tales, but they also managed to make it a good personal film for Puss in Boots, with a great new cast of characters. I don't even need to discuss why this wolf dude is awesome, because this sequel gave us a great original villain. Could you imagine if they did something stupid like, I don't know, bring back the villain from the first movie needlessly? Yeah, that would be really dumb. Them making one of the best animated villains in recent memory was a better trade-off for sure. This is a film that does a lot more with its character, story, and animation than you would think. Not only is it great, not only does it have a better version of Jiminy Cricket than whatever this thing is, but it also manages to be a film that showcases the importance of making a difference to others and make time well spent in such a thoughtful way. It's a film that does tackle death that you don't see animated films geared towards family do. Okay, there is one other animated film that has both of those things I mentioned this year, but we'll get to that later. Still, it's impressive that of all things, this came from the sequel to this.
It ain't over easy.
Oh.
I think slowly but surely people are discovering the greatness that is Puss in Boots 2. Definitely is one to still check out, and is just one of the many great surprises of 2022. I look forward to what this studio will bring us now, because dude, DreamWorks is back.
If you could go anywhere in the whole world, where would you go?
I always want to be part of something bigger, something that lasts, that means something more important than life.
Yes.
If you want to end a year off right with something wild, this is it. Babylon is more or less the exact kind of film I look for in any year. A film that's one of the most bombastic, ambitious, and bold pieces of work I've seen all year from one of my absolute favorite directors with Damien Chazelle. While it has been seen as mixed or disappointing by some, this is a film that I certainly think deserves more love, and I think can over time. This film centers on 1920s Hollywood with all the insanity that went on brewing during that time in Chazelle's massive 3-hour showcase. It strangely blends aspects of Chazelle's most iconic work with Whiplash and La La Land. It showcases a lot of the beauty and artistic passion that goes into filmmaking like La La Land, but also isn't afraid to show the harsh realities of what can go into that passion in the vein of something like Whiplash. Despite what some may assume that this film celebrates Hollywood, in reality, it is actually critical of the kind of exploitation and class struggles that go on into the world of filmmaking, thanks to what the wealthy elite can do. There still is a sense that it can go even further, admittedly, and not everything works about it, but the way the film showcases it is quite bold. And that's not even considering all the great things that appear in this movie. Some outstanding performances with maybe some of the best I've seen Margot Robbie in a film. Top-notch production values all around, showcasing Chazelle's directing style on full blast. And the music, do I even need to explain how incredible Justin Hurt's score is in this? This movie emits a rare kind of energy that I've always loved seeing. This really worked for me, especially with what the film means in the landscape of movies. It's mostly conveyed through the ending, which I'm slowly coming around to, as without revealing too much, it sounds like maybe a cheap move on paper, yet the way it ties into the film's overall themes of how art can be this lasting thing from passionate people who put their all into it makes up for it, for me. The finale was meant to emphasize that movies are kinda forever, and even no matter what happens through the process, no matter what might occur that could be as painful as it is to get to it, it is still immortalized that craft and love everyone should witness in their lives. Movies are considered empathy machines, and some of the best movies of this year highlight that big time for me. So a film like Babylon that can feel honest about how the world of filmmaking is, while still emitting a positive outlook on the whole ordeal, despite how harsh it can be, sounds impossible. But because of Chazelle's direction and love for the medium, I think him and his team conveyed that very well. Babylon is something of an underrated gem in my opinion. And if you still haven't seen it yet, by all means, check it out. Please do. An original film this well done doesn't deserve to be bombing this hard. It's another film of 2022 that shows the importance of why filmmaking is art in a year filled with plenty of other films that are magical in their own right. So take that for what it's worth.
It was a good life. Ah, good enough. Hit it, boys. You want to think bright. You want to think right. A star falling down, down, down doesn't break the night. You want to think bright. Whatever you do, shadows bring you down, 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 dimming all the light as you try to climb.
I like puppets.
Oh yes, the other animated movie of 2022 that heavily discusses death and a good version of Jiminy Cricket. It was no secret that Del Toro was destined to have some eyebrows raised when hearing that he was working on this, and it is exactly what you want from a stop-motion animated film that's a dark retelling of the classic Pinocchio. I don't even need to state the obvious regarding this being better than certain versions of the story coming out this year. Del Toro's retelling of the film, much like Puss in Boots, talks about making that time well spent before you're gone. And I think it's great that family movies end up tackling these kind of themes. We still get a strange tale with iconic and memorable visuals, just done in such a new way thanks to a talented director and a team of brilliant animators. Breathtakingly beautiful stop motion, excellent soundtrack, certainly gives this a bigger boost. I mean, how could this not? This has Ewan McGregor as a singing cricket, for crying out loud. I'm hoping this paves the way for more brilliantly animated films from great high-profile directors. Del Toro gave a lot of props to animators in a year where many have been mistreated unfairly.
Therefore, it's been a great year for animation. because animation is cinema.
Thank you, Del Toro, for addressing this by giving us the best that animation could have offered this year. If you still haven't seen it yet, please do, as I am fairly certain that it will give you a better tomorrow.
Thursday, October 31st.
If I had to point to one film that was the first to prove that 2022 was going to be an incredible year for film, it would hands down be this. The Batman is the kind of big epic project dealing with one of my favorite properties of all time that I've always clamored for in cinema. I've stated in the past that I'm a massive DC fan, and I was genuinely hopeful that the 2020s would be good for them. And so far, it's been showcasing a lot of that. Sure, Black Adam and Wonder Woman 1984 existed, but I genuinely liked the Snyder Cut and Birds of Prey for what they were, and the Suicide Squad was my favorite movie of last year. Having the Batman be the main film to front load the DC universe this year cemented my dreams of DC shining through in a sea where the MCU takes over. The Batman is practically so much of what I love in DC films, and especially Batman films. The mood, the cinematography, and the way it just adds to the lore. And just so much of this film makes it the absolute achievement of 2022 for me. However, as much as I adore this film, there is a tiny bit of unfortunate baggage. While this film made me more excited for more prospect for DC in the future, I have gotten a lot more negative vibes from Warner Brothers as of late. This wasn't their best year thanks to a number of decisions that left me and many others go, what? Why? And how? It was kind of heartbreaking to see, being someone who has honestly loved a lot of the talent and work that have come from the studio. After all, I didn't make that Warner Brothers animation ranking for nothing. So to see this kind of treatment for these artists thanks to awful corporate management does leave a bit of a sour taste. Though despite that, am I really going to let that tarnish my perspective on something as incredible as the Batman? Honestly, no. Yes, I will continue to call out WB's decision if they're still as shitty as they have been. Yet at the same time, I can't outright ignore some of the true effort that was made by those who actually gave a shit about what these characters have to offer to the world. Talents like Matt Reeves and James Gunn really made me glad to be a DC fan with their films alone, and it makes me a tiny bit more hopeful to see more what these two have planned in store for DC. Sure, there might be a wait and see depending on how the choices Gunn made will pan out, but still, these guys' work from previous movies alone does bring hope to my eyes. Reeves still gave us an incredible Batman movie that has so much of what you want. It has a Gotham City like no other, a compelling antagonist as interesting as the Joker in The Dark Knight, the absolute best score of 2022. Seriously, how the hell did this not end up making the Oscar shortlist? And finally, Pattinson being a damn good Batman. He's now up there as one of the most memorable versions of the character, alongside Bale, Keaton, Affleck, and most importantly, Kevin Conroy, which, rest in peace, legend. The Batman was truly the hero that DC deserves and needs. And even within the darkness that can occur in the WB lot, this hero can guide that incredible talent to the place they surely need to be. So take that for what it's worth.
want to be here with you. I will always want to be here with you.
I mean, what the hell else was it going to be? Everything Everywhere All at Once is a crowning achievement on what the world of cinema can bring us. In a time where people say originality is dead and it's just reboots and remakes of other things, I dare you to say that while watching this film. A24 has been screaming with originality this year with so many of their films, and this film is the front runner of it. This is one unique movie that combines so many different kinds of films in the most ambitious way, and not once does it feel overstuffed or overbearing. From beginning to end, the Daniels brought cinema goers a film experience of a lifetime, as Everything Everywhere has been one of the best small success stories, and for good reason. This film, from a production level, does so much with having so many strange worlds and effects that never slows down throughout its 2.5-hour runtime. All the various shots and effects they were able to pull off is astonishing. This film truly sparks the imagination in terms of what you can do with effects. How the Oscar shortlist managed to ignore a film with effects this amazing, with so much ambition behind them, this is a low blow for the Academy. Worse than when Free Guy got nominated over The Suicide Squad. I don't care if it took James Cameron a decade and $1 billion just to make pretty colors on screen. The fact that the Daniels did all of this incredible work with a $25 million budget will always impress me way more. Also, Ratatouille. How could you not love Ratatouille? Even taking all the greatness this visceral experience has from a production standpoint, there's so much more to it than that. It's a film that combines so many different genres, yet at the end of the day, has more heart than any movie to have come out this year. As I stated earlier with Babylon, movies are sort of empathy machines in a way, and no film captures that feeling of it more than A24's Everything Everywhere. People have experienced rough patches in the past couple of years, myself included, but this film captures that true feeling that you're not alone. Everyone has their own struggles. Everyone has something they're not satisfied with in their life. But rather than maybe argue about it, learn to accept that we're in this together, and we need to make the most of what's important. The relationships made with one another and the impact you can have on them can really make a difference, and in many ways makes theirs and your own life better. It's important to have that simple connection with a person and be open to treating them with respect, because that's how people get through these things. It leads to my favorite quote in the entire movie, and probably my favorite line in any movie this year.
Please, be kind. Especially when we don't know what's going on.
A line that poignant that sums up the theme of empathy this movie has is the reason why this movie makes my #1 spot. An Oscar caliber performance as amazing as Ki Hye Kwan in this film is the reason why this film makes the #1 spot. A movie that does so much with its directing, acting, visuals, and all-around storytelling that basically does everything everywhere all at once is the reason why this film makes the #1 spot of an already incredible year for film. 2022 will be one of those highlight years for movies, if you ask me. Even with every small or big bad thing happening in the world, one cannot forget the true escapism and sense of empathy movies can bring. If we can get more movies that manage to be bold, ambitious, creative, and just all around memorable as much as films like this and so many others, then I look forward to whatever potential new classics the 2020s will have to offer later on. So take that for what it's worth.
Now we're cooking while nobody's looking. Yeah, family. Culinary